Joker 2, aka Joker Folie et Deux. I have not had any French classes for a while, so apologies for that one. I just got back from the theater from seeing this movie, and I already posted my out of the theater reaction. And I feel like this, movie needs a review. It needs a full review, and I'm going in just really fresh. No notes here. And I was thinking about it for like the last half an hour on the way home, and yeah, I don't think fans of the first movie are going to like this movie at all. I don't think your hardcore DC fanboys are going to like this whatsoever because Joker was a pretty big hit. Regardless of what you think of that movie, it was nominated for lots of Academy Awards. It won lots of awards. Joaquin Phoenix won for Best Actor. I believe the score won as well. And you have a very set tone with Joker. Not only with Joker 2, I'm just going to call it Joker 2. They try to replicate that same tone. They try to get into the psyche of Joker. They're trying to say that, there's two people inside of Arthur Fleck. There's Arthur Fleck and there's Joker. And of course, there's a court trial, and people, want to know if it's really him or is it Joker or is it Arthur Fleck. So they try to have that same tone in this one as well. But you also have it where it's a courtroom drama. So, okay, it's a different genre than the first movie a little bit. That's fine. But then you also have it be a musical. And when I first heard about this, I'm like, let's bring it on. Because I want more unconventional storytelling. I don't want the exact same thing that I had before. So you got to do something different. However, did this just go so different? It felt like such a huge departure. And again, I don't want to be hypocritical here because I'm like, oh, that's nothing like the first movie. I was excited to see the musical numbers. However, it did just feel like you were trying to tell another Joker movie with some kind of gimmick. You're like, let's just make it a musical. Wouldn't that be crazy? Yeah, let's do it. But the execution of it, I found to be extremely clunky. And I used this analogy in my YouTube short. Think of like a blender. And you have all these different elements that you want to put into this movie. You want to make it a Joker sequel. You want to make it a musical, right? With the Lady Gaga performances. And yeah, sure, they're making it so that a lot of the musical numbers are happening in his head because he, has many fantasies. So again, it warrants itself to that. And some of those musical numbers are very, very well done. And then it's a courtroom drama. And you put it into a blender. But instead of letting it actually blend through and getting a really rich and consistent and smooth smoothie, you stop it after a second and you pour it in and it's like clunky and it doesn't flow well. And that's the thing. I always felt like all those elements were just at odds with one another. And it felt like, well, one, it was a slow movie. I always felt like, when's this movie gonna get going? And there were some moments where I'm like, okay, now this movie's finally let loose. It's let out of the cages, but yet it just gets reeled back into it. I feel like it's about to get going, and then the musical number will just take it over here. And I go, oh, but see, it was going in that direction, and I liked that it was going in that direction. It felt like the pacing is going to start to, pick up. Oh, wait, no, we got to go over here. And then we got to go over here. We got to go over here. We got to go over here. It felt very disjointed. It felt like, going downhill might be a analogy for like getting the car to run, where it's like, okay, now we're picking up some steam, we're getting some momentum, and we're going in one direction. But the car has oval wheels and they're made out of wood. So when this movie was happening, it was like gunk, gunk, gunk. Then that's the thing. Again, this is really fresh. I'm just thinking of different analogies where I can explain my experience with Joker 2. Let's say this. Joaquin Phoenix, he won the Oscar, obviously, for the last Joker movie. And then you watch him in this, and he does not bring that same energy. It feels more like a satire of himself. Same thing happened with Johnny Depp with Jack Sparrow. He was nominated for Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. He didn't win it. And then, of course, everyone loved that character, so we just got to do more and more and more and more and more. And he becomes a parody of himself. I felt that way with Joker in this movie. And it wasn't the same performance. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but I just know that it's not the same thing. Lady Gaga, she has a great voice and she can really do those musical numbers. But I didn't really buy that romance between Harley Quinn and the Joker. Of course, she is kind of pulling the same cards as oh, what's the character's name from the Batman? The Riddler. It's like, I know, and when you put that mask on, that's who you truly are, right? So she's about to kiss him. I'll give one little scene away. No, 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 I need to make sure that you, the real you, is out. So then she puts on some makeup and it's like, the real you, right? And I didn't really quite buy their romance. Yeah, like this is the thing. It's so fresh. And I'll say this. I saw this movie with a friend of mine and he really didn't like the first movie. And he liked this movie more than the last one, but only because of the musical numbers in a vacuum. Even he would say that this movie is clunky, this movie is paced pretty poorly, and this movie does not flow well together. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of random ideas that don't really mesh well together. And he said, there's no real reason for this movie to exist. Like, this movie doesn't further the story. This movie is just kind of like a detour, and it feels more like an inside joke than anything. It's like the filmmakers were like, it'd be so crazy if it was a musical. But they didn't really think it through, and they were just thinking, like, how many times can we have all these moments where there's all these fantasy sequences? And I will say this. This movie is shot so incredibly beautifully well. There's a clunky way of saying it, but this movie looks amazing. There are many shots where I'm going, man, it just looks beautiful. It looks brilliant. It looks fantastic. So just from a visual standpoint, this movie is very well made. But I wasn't feeling any, like the first movie made me feel uncomfortable. The first movie made me feel intense emotions of fear and tension. And again, it was like a really gripping thriller. In this movie, I really didn't feel any of that. I felt, pretty underwhelmed and bored and frustrated. That's the key word, frustrated. Because I knew that, again, like I said, this movie looks amazing. I just wish that they really focused on one of those elements. And I know this right away, that I know a lot of people will just hate this movie right away because it's a musical. Because, again, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that most comic book fans of the DCEU and fans of comic book movies, I know Joker is pretty unconventional in this world of comic book movies, but I don't think they want to see a musical. I don't think they really care about seeing Joker in the world of Singing in the Rain. I believe, in the movie, they're even watching an old musical. I think it was King and I. I believe it was King and I. It could have been Top Hat. I could have gotten either of those wrong, but let me know down below, what musical are they watching in the movie? I don't really want to see Joker and Harley Quinn in that kind of musical, right? In terms of what I think comic book fans would want. I was all for it because I'm going, sorry, still got some popcorn. But I'm thinking to myself, like, what an out of left field idea. Let's go for it. Sure, why not? I just wish that it didn't do that. And I'll say this too. This is where I'll end it off, because I'm running out of things to say, because it was just such a convoluted, frustrating experience. I will say that there is one choice in this movie that is going to really, really upset fans. And I could kind of see it coming, because there are some certain shots in this movie and I'm going, why are we cutting to this? Why are we showing this happening right now? It definitely has to come back later, because there's no point that it's almost like so obvious, going like, hey guys, remember this scene for later, watch out. So again, it feels like they're kind of, I don't want to say they're talking down to the audience, but maybe the filmmakers thought they were more clever than they actually were. And then when their decision happens, I'm being very vague, I understand that. I could see it coming, and all I could think about was, while it doesn't piss me off, it will piss off a ton of people. And I know that I'm going to be seeing Twitter threads and YouTube videos. This whole outrage culture, I hate it. But man, this movie's going to give them a lot of ammunition. So if you are one of those YouTubers who makes like hate content, like, oh, it's the death of Warner Brothers. Oh, you have a lot to say with this movie. So get ready for that shitstorm. For an overall rating, I know that it was a frustrating experience, but I would say that there's many good elements in this movie. And it's shot so incredibly well. The musical numbers are good in a vacuum. A lot of the courtroom scenes are good in a vacuum. And there's good ideas here, but in execution and the pacing and just how it's all, brought together, I'm not watching this movie again. So I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 5. That's my rating. Let me know yours down in the comment section down below. Thank you to all my Patreon members, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. See ya.